resource person, Mr. Karthik Krishnan. He is a well-rounded managerial and hands-on technology professional with 25 years of IT industrial experience. He is currently working as enterprise solutions architect for Samsung USA. He is very passionate about designing, developing, and delivering highly secure, cost-effective cloud-based solutions. He have 6 Amazon certifications: AWS Solutions Architect, AWS SOps Administrator, AWS Developer, Amazon Certified Business Professional, Amazon Certified Technical Professional, Amazon Certified TCO and Economics. So I am very happy to welcome you, sir, for this webinar session to enlighten our participants. So before starting our session, I want to tell something to participants. Kindly mute your video and audio, and you can post your questions in the chat box. That will be answered by the resource person at the end of the session. And feedback link will also be posted in the chat box, and that will be active till 2 p.m. Right? So kindly cooperate with us. And on behalf of LIT and Department of CSE and IT, I once again welcome you all for this webinar on cloud transformations. And I hope this session will help you, will definitely informative and will be helpful to you. And now I hand over this session to our resource person, Mr. Karthik Krishnan. Thank you, sir. Session is yours.
Thank
Sir?
you. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro. That made my job much easier. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to meet you all. Though we don't get to see face to face, it's pleasure to share this session with you. Before jumping into today's session, I just want to share a few insights about today's session. When I got this opportunity to speak about any particular topic in technology, I was pretty sure what the topic was. But however, talking to the organizers, I found that the audience come from varied disciplines of varied ages with different levels of technical background. So that being the case, I had to step back a bit and tailor the content of this session for a wider audience and a diverse audience as well. So this session is going to be like something like a 101 of cloud transformation, or a very high level 10,000 foot overview of cloud transformation. So for some, it still could be overwhelming, but for others, it could be like cloud for dummies. So somewhere I had to draw the line to get things going. So that's the gist of this session. Like at the end of the session, if you felt it was useful and if you're interested for more, please feel free to give your feedback like Dr. Bhuneshwari mentioned. Let's see if you need one more or a few more sessions. I'm here and we can take it from there. Yeah, plus the other thing I want to bring it up is I probably want to split the session into 2 parts and take a 5-minute break so that we can answer any questions that the audience may have. So please feel free to post your questions on the chat window. Sounds good? So without further delay, let me get into the subject or the topic for today. So it's, as you all know, it's cloud transformation. So this topic basically split into 2 or 3 parts, I would say. One is the nucleus of it. What's the cloud? What's cloud basically? What is cloud? So that's that's the starting point. Then once you have a clarity on what exactly cloud or cloud computing means, we can get into why you need cloud. And then after you get details about why you need cloud, then we can get into how to get there. So how to get there is a huge, vast topic. So, but like I said, again, it's going to be like cloud for dummies. I'm just going to brush a few basic details of what cloud computing is all about and how to get there. That's pretty much what how to get there is all about. And finally, since a lot of you are students looking for jobs, I'm going to take some time and then speak up a little bit about what are the job opportunities that you have in this area, and how you could equip yourself uh, if you're interested in finding a job in this particular field. So that's pretty much what this course is going to be. So any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat window, like I said. We'll take a break somewhere in between to answer those questions. Right, let's get going. So what is cloud computing actually? So hold on one second. I'm trying to see if I can close. No, hold on. I'm trying to move my window. Okay, there you go. So what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT infrastructure components and services over the internet with pay-as-you-go pricing from a cloud service provider. So that's the definition. Let's try to dissect this and see what this exactly means actually. So before that, if you see, I just put a red a number on top of some of the words here, which is, for instance, IT infrastructure components on this page. I try to have a small quiz kind of thing on each page. So on this page, it's that one. I'll post a question just to see, just to gauge where the audience stand. So for this one, the question would be IT infrastructure components. So please feel free to add your answers or post your answers of what you think as IT infrastructure components. So keep going. At the end of this session, we can collect the answers and see for more useful answers, and then we can have some kind of reward for the people who have had more participation and better answers. So feel free to keep putting your answers as you see the questions. Anyway, so I want to get back to the main topic of what is cloud computing. So you see that it's about the on-demand delivery of IT infrastructure components. So I'm not going to go into IT infrastructure components right now because I'm going to give some time for you to keep answering that. So let's get into what actually on-demand means. On-demand delivery is a model in which infrastructure components are made available to the users. The users could be organizers, or organizations, individuals, whoever the users are. The IT infrastructure is made available to the users as needed. Actually, that's pretty much what on-demand is. In simple term, it's like owning was renting versus renting. You don't own anything in an on-demand setup. In cloud, you don't own anything. You just use the services and the IT infrastructure components as you require. To give a small example, I would bring it up, if you want to tell in practical terms, I would bring it up something, say you want to travel from point A to point B. It's like owning a car versus renting a cab from a service provider like Uber or Ola or whatever it is. So that's pretty much what on-demand uh, or pay-as-you-go is pretty much. So you get all the infrastructure components delivered through you through internet. Delivered meaning you would not have any physical delivery. You would the infrastructures would be sitting somewhere on someone's data center or someone's premises, and you would have access to that infrastructure through internet, and you don't have to pay for the whole infrastructure. So now that I've given some time to answer for the infrastructure components could be your hardware, it could be your software, it could be your networking components. It's a bunch of IT related components. So those components, you get access to those via internet as you need it, and you pay as you go. So for instance, so if you own a car, what happens? You have to maintain the car, you have to do oil changes, you have to fill gas for that, and then I'm sorry, was there a question or okay, sorry. So if you own a car, you have to do all those things versus if you have to, if you're using a cab service like Ola or Uber, all you have to do is call them and then use the car that takes you from point A to point B. That is pretty much what cloud computing is with regards to computers. So someone owns the computer, you have, all you do is you have internet with you, and then you access those computers or those infrastructure through the internet, and you just pay for it only when you use it. And the people who do that are called cloud service providers, or CSPs. So cloud service providers for you, for instance, is like a Ola equivalent or a Uber equivalent, but in computers. There are a few leaders, there are a few challengers, and the list below here shows a few leaders in this. So this list is provided by a company called Gartner. Gartner, for instance, is a research and advisory companies. They deliver technology-related insights into their clients. They do a lot of research about each and every verticals within technology, and they provide their results. So Gartner is kind of like the benchmark which the industry looks up to see who the leading cloud service providers are. So at this time, the domain is occupied by four major service providers: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Azure, Google Cloud Platform, and then IBM. So these are the four leaders at this point. So these four are usually referred as cloud service providers. They have all the computers and the computer infrastructure that you require on their premises across the world. They have data centers across the world. They have in multiple continents, in multiple regions. And then all you do is use internet to connect to those infrastructure, and then you pay, and then you pay for what you use, and you can use that computers and those resources for whatever purpose you need. It's not just computer infrastructure, it's also services. So that's pretty much what cloud computing is in a nutshell. So if, if, if that's what it is, if you're good with this, we'll move on to the next one as wide cloud computing. So hope that clarifies a lot about what cloud computing is. And then this is the biggest part. This is one of the biggest part. Why do you need cloud computing? Cloud computing comes with a bunch of advantages. We're going to discuss each of those one by one. But the thing is, there are advantages of owning computers, and there are advantages of renting computers, which is nothing but using a cloud service provider. So we're going to see what the advantages are for each of those, and why the industry is moving in a direction more towards cloud computing rather than having a data center set up on your own at your own premise and making use of those. So there is a clear shift, at least in the last 7 years, where cloud computing is picking up huge, and it's inching towards $1 trillion industry. It's been a multi-billion dollar industry. It's moving towards $1 trillion industry. And most of the companies, right from startups to bigger organizations, are moving towards cloud computing using one of those cloud service providers that we discussed about. So what is it making these organizations and individuals move towards cloud computing? Obviously, one of the biggest ones or biggest advantage is cost. So if you look from a cost perspective, there is a term here we see, which is OpEx versus CapEx. So what are those? OpEx stands for operational expenditure, and CapEx stands for capital expenditure. So what is capital expenditure? Like, again, I want to fall back to the example that we talked about, owning a car versus renting a car. So if you talk about capital expenditure, you have to incur certain expenses to create long-term benefits for the future, such as you have to purchase a building, you have to purchase fixed assets, you have to purchase hardware, you have to purchase cooling equipments, power grids, etc. All those things to own a business. So that involves some money. That money is called capital expenditure. So in a traditional business where you have data center, it gravitates more towards capital expense. So not all businesses can afford with a huge amount of money to start a business. So that's the disadvantages of capital expenditure. OpEx or operational expense is pretty much like, again, I want to fall back to the example of paying your cab driver just for the ride. You may not be driving, you may not be going from point A to point B that much. So at that point in time, you just pay for that ride, and then you don't have the burden of owning the entire car. So that's what operational expenses. Operational expenses, it's like utility bills. You don't own the whole utility grid to have a power in your house. So you just tap a meter, use the utility power as you need it, and then you pay for it. So that's operational expense. So in cloud, the operational expenses would be for whatever you use. So if you're using a particular computer for 4 hours, you would be paying only for 4 hours. And then you can shut down that computer, or you can stop that computer. Whether it's your business or your personal need, you would not be paying anything more. And how do you access that computer? You can access from your mobile phone. You can access from another lightweight computer. You don't have to have a powerful computer. You could have like a very small Chromebook or a small lightweight computer on your home, and then access that particular computer which is sitting on someone else's server, which is the cloud service provider server. And you can leverage the full capacity of that particular server sitting from a very lightweight computer. And it's not just that one computer that you can access. You can have tons of computers on the web, and all those can be accessed from your one single computer. And you don't have to maintain or upgrade all those hardware resources that you would have on your local data center. So this is a huge cost advantage. And this, for startups where cash is a crunch, they can just open an account with one of these CSPs or service providers, and they can hit the ground from day one, and they can have their business up and running from day one. So that's a revolutionary thought, and that's bringing up a lot of businesses into mainstream. And for whatever reason, if those businesses feel that after a few months their business is not taking up, or their business is not going as good as they think, they can shut down their account, and then they don't have to think about dismantling the data center, selling the hardware that they own, nothing of that sort. And for whatever reason, if the business goes well, they can scale up the business. They can they can rent as many servers from these cloud service providers, and then they can expand the business. So it works both the ways. So that's a huge advantage. Cost is a huge advantage. And the other one is businesses don't have to do something called a capacity planning. Capacity planning is, for example, say your business, you're running a restaurant business, or you're running a ticket, a movie ticket selling business. You would not have demand on all these days. On all the days, the same amount of traffic would not be coming to your website. You will have days where you will have huge traffic on some days, and you would have less traffic on some other days. So if you own a data center, you have to do capacity planning. You have to make an estimate of what your demand is going to be. You have to procure servers, huge servers, which are going to be sitting idle for many days and are going to be put to use only on certain days. So that capacity planning you don't have to do when it comes to cloud computing, because you can spin up as many computers as you need. So that's a huge another cost advantage as well. So enough said about cost. Let's move on to the next one, which is shared responsibility model. So in cloud, there is a shared responsibility model. So what shared responsibility model is? these CSPs, again, I talk about CSPs, I don't want to specify one of those, but I'll just tell CSPs include Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Provider. All these are CSPs. So when you have your business running on cloud, these CSPs are responsible for the security and the availability of cloud infrastructure. So you are not responsible for any of the infrastructure availability or the security. It's the responsibility of the CSPs to maintain that. So what does this give you? This also puts some responsibility on the organizations and the customers that are using the cloud. They are responsible for securing the application and data that they put in the cloud. So if you're deploying an application on cloud, I'm sorry. So if you're deploying an application on the cloud, so what happens is the CSPs take the complete ownership and complete responsibility of maintaining the hardware and the availability of it as well. But once you deploy the application, it's absolutely your responsibility to secure the application and your data. So if you want to make backups of your data, of course, there are automatic ways of doing that, but you choose to do that. You choose to say whether your application needs to be secure to this level, your data has to be secure to this level. So that becomes completely your responsibility or the organization's responsibility. So that's pretty much what shared responsibility is. Is there a network? I'm seeing a network latency. Can you guys hear me? Can the moderator speak if you can hear me? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, because I got a
Yes, sir, you
prompt.
are clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. Because I got a prompt here which said there was bad internet connection or something. I just want to make sure. Okay. So that's shared responsibility. So when you mean to cloud, not everything is the responsibility of the CSP. There is a responsibility on the customer or the user of the CSP as well. And then there is agility. By agility, I mean the pace at which the technology is deployed. So it's much, much faster than what it was before, actually. In business context, or agility usually refers to the organization's ability to adapt to market requirements. So that with cloud, you would be able to do it much faster in a much cost-effective way. For instance, say there is a new software in the market. If you were to be running a data center, you would have to again buy those software. If there is a new hardware on the computer, if your hardware is running slow on the data center, you have to or you have to procure it, you have to deploy it, you have to employ people, you have to do everything on your own. With cloud, there is a service provider which is doing everything for you. All you need to do is to pretty sorry. You pretty much have to. You pretty much have to. Hello. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? There's an echo. There's an echo.
Uh, yes, sir, we are hearing.
Yes, sir, we are hearing. Okay, there is an echo. There is an echo. Hello. Okay, I think I'm better now because I was hearing myself for whatever reason. So with cloud, since both the hardware, software, and the services are available and provided by the CSP, it's available to you in a minute. For whatever reason, you feel that your the application, the hardware on which your application is running is not as powerful as you want it to be, you can immediately switch to a more powerful computer or more powerful server on the cloud. All it does is it's in a click of a button. You can port your application from one server to another. So that speed or that agility would not be available in a physical data center or a physical server that you would have on your premise. So this is a huge advantage for businesses. So this agility, that's what it's said as idea to implementation, is much faster than what it was before with the availability of these cloud service providers. Again, elasticity. Elasticity is nothing but the ability to bring up more servers up or down based on the demand that you get to your website or to your application. So again, I want to go back to the example we are talking. So you have a ticketing reservation system. Say there is a good movie that's going to be released this Friday, or there's a sports event that's happening where you're going to sell tickets on a particular day. What happens is you would be selling those tickets on all the days, but on a few days when the movie is about to release or the sport event is about to happen, the demand spikes, and then at that point in time you need more computing resources than the rest of the days. The rest of the days, once the movie has released, where you're still selling tickets, and the demand is less, you don't need that much computing resources. So those days where there are high demands, you would have to have more servers up and running or more powerful servers up and running. That can be done just by a click of button, or it can be done automatically on the cloud, which you would not be able to do it on the on-premise or in the data center. So that is what is referred to as elasticity. So you can scale up and down your cloud infrastructure automatically based on demand that your application or your website is getting actually. So that's elasticity. Now coming back to the final one, global presence and accessibility. This is another huge strategic advantage. By the way, we have a bunch of advantages of cloud computing. I'm just listing of top 5 that usually the industry thinks are the best or the huge advantages. So I have added some resources at the end of this presentation. I'll share this PowerPoint, which has more information about all these that's being discussed here. So that said, let's go back to global presence and accessibility. So cloud-based applications. So this is the second question for the team here. So I would like to hear from you what you think about cloud-based applications. So feel free to answer with, type in your answers, what you think as cloud-based applications. So cloud-based applications and data are accessible from virtually any internet-connected device. This is a huge advantage from an accessibility perspective for any business. So you're a business, you have an application up and running. Say you have a data center, say it's Chennai-based business. You have a data center located in Chennai. The reach of that for that business, or if you want to expand that business, say to somewhere in Hong Kong or Europe or America, what you would do is you would have to physically build those data centers in each of these locations, or you would have to have very high bandwidth connectivity to your data centers for people to access your application, which is sitting in a data center in Chennai. This is going to be a huge disadvantage if you cannot provide the necessary infrastructure. And that limits the growth of your business. This limits the growth of your business if you cannot expand your business, or if you cannot expand your data center to different regions and different countries. With these cloud service providers, like I mentioned earlier, they have presence across the globe. All these 4 or even 5 or 6 cloud service providers we saw in the previous page, They have presence across the globe in every single continent and more than I'm sorry, more than most of the countries and cities. So once you deploy your application, it gets deployed to all these locations, and then your application is globally available, and then they can connect from the internet using a mobile device or anything using to your application. So at this, I hope that by this time I have responses for cloud-based applications. So I'm just going to go with very basic cloud-based applications. GoToMeeting that we are using right now is a cloud-based application. So someone is running on a server, and then we all dial in. The application is GoToMeeting. It's sitting on a cloud. It's sitting somewhere on.
ನಾನು 11 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂಚೂರು ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿಲ್ಲ ರಜಾ ಹಾಕೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ರಜಾ ಹಾಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 1500 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಕಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ರಜಾ ಇದ್ರು ಹಾಕೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಹೋಗಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಕ್ಯಾಬಲ್ಲಿ ನನ್ನ ಮಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಡ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬರ್ಬೇಕು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿತ್ತಮ್ಮ ಇಲ್ಲಿ 25th 7 ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ 25th 7 ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ ಹೇಳು 15 5th sem.
Someone's mic is unmuted. Can you just mute it, please? Okay, I think I'll continue. So these are all the huge advantages of cloud computing. Shared responsibility models, ability to get the business going, elasticity, you will not be paying for more than what you need. You don't have to buy huge upfront servers. And then global presence and accessibility, which is a huge strategic advantage. So these are huge advantages of cloud computing. So at this point, I would like to take a pause and then review the questions and then answer any questions that we have so that before we proceed to the next one, which could be about how to get there. So I want to take a pause at this point in time. So I want to hand over the mic or the presenting to Dr. Bhuvaneshwari. So if you want to read the questions, if you think there are a few questions, 2 or 3 questions, top 3 questions, feel free to read so that I can answer those questions before we move on to the next session, next part of the session.
Sir, one question is sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
It can be accessible at any time of any point of time or any time. It's a question asked by someone. Is it accessible at any point of time?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So that's the one of the huge USPs of cloud computing. Like I mentioned earlier. Hold on, why did it say leave meeting? Hold on 1 second. I have to. Yes. So this, I want to go back to this slide where we talked about on-demand delivery. When you say on-demand delivery of the services and internet pay as you go, these cloud service providers make sure that it's available 24/7, 365. Any resource that you want, be it a hardware, be it software, be it their services, all of these are available 24/7, 365 days. And there is something called service level agreement, SLA. So they have a service level agreement that you sign up when you sign up an account with them. It's pretty much like your computer, you can log in at 2 a.m. in the morning and spin up a new computer, and then you can work on it for 4 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, and then once you're done, you can shut down the computer. It's available 24/7, 365, and as long as you want. Yeah, that guarantee is provided by the cloud service provider. And they're all much mature CSPs. So the SLA for these cloud service providers is 99.999, which is like in a year, they say that your the service will be available for at least over 364 or 365 days. So that's what it means actually. So you don't have to be worried about the availability of the computer. That's the job of the CSPs. And I've been in this industry for long enough. I've not seen a computer being unavailable even for businesses. Forget about individuals. There have been downtimes on storage. There have been a few hours of downtimes, but that's nothing major. But from an infrastructure perspective, you would have it when you need it. That assurity is given by the SLA of the cloud service provider.
Okay,
Right?
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Is there another question?
Hello.
Before? Yeah, can you hear me?
No, sir. Yes, sir. So till now we have only one question in the chat box. So you can proceed the session, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next one is kind of a vital one. This forms the crux of cloud computing. So you as a business have a business idea, or an individual have a business idea. You have an application up and running on your data center or on your on-premise. Now you want to expand your business, so you decide to choose cloud as the route. So you want to go to cloud. So what happens is, how do you get to cloud? That would be the biggest question actually. So like any other business, there are different models or different strategies that have emerged over a period of time to meet this question. Some of them want just hardware resources. Others might want much more than hardware resources. So all of this is taken care or taken into account before this model came into picture actually. So that's what this session is pretty much going to discuss about. So this one is, how do you get to cloud? So in cloud, there, like you see in this slide here. Am I still being presenting my session?
Excuse me, sir. The slide is not visible to us.
Let me hold on. Let me try to share this slide. Okay, I'm trying to share my screen. Hold on one second. It's taking a minute. Sorry, in the meantime, if you have other questions, you can just ask. Feel free to ask, but I'm just trying to share my slide here. For some reason, the GoToMeeting application is not letting me share my.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
So I have one question.
Go ahead.
Which are the different data types used for cloud computing, sir?
What are the different types of, what is it?
Different data types used for cloud computing.
Data types. Yeah, I think by data types you mean it's completely application related. So
Yes,
application.
sir. Application related.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter actually. You can have any data type is something that your application deals with. Once you have an application, you deploy your application to the cloud. So from a cloud perspective, it's completely irrelevant what data type your application deals with. So you can have any type of data type within your application.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So I don't know what's happening here. It's not letting me share my um, I may have to disconnect and rejoin in a minute. Just give me a minute. So if you want to pause the recording, go ahead and pause the recording. I will just join in a second.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, meantime, you can post your questions in the chat box. Our resource person will come and join with us in a few minutes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you want me to make me the presenter?
Yes, sure, sir. Just a minute.
Yeah.
Mr. Prabhu?
Yes, ma'am. I'm doing it, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
He's already a presenter, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I am not able to share my screen. For
Hello,
some
sir.
reason, yeah, for some reason I'm not able to share my screen.
Sir, you again go out and come in again, sir. And you refresh your system and come in again, sir.
Okay, so do I have to disconnect from the call from
Yeah.
GoToMeeting? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yes, sir.
Dear participants, kindly stay on the line.
Okay, I just rejoined, but I'll see if I can share my screen. If not, I have to.
Just a minute, sir. I make you as a presenter.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you can do it, sir.
Yeah, I can see that now. Okay. Okay. Do you see it now?
Now we can see your.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It is visible.
Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No
Okay.
problem, sir.
So let's get back to where we left. So how do you get to this? I think we have another 15-30 minutes. Let's try to end the session after that, and then I'll open up the session. So how do you get to cloud is what is one of the um, main things that I want to bring it up to this audience. So now you know that what cloud is and why do you need cloud. Now you have an application or a business idea or a business and an organization, they want to get to cloud. So how do you get to cloud? There are 3 delivery models to deliver your application onto the cloud. So like it says here, IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So there are 3 delivery models that you can think of. IaaS stands for Infrastructure as a Service, PaaS stands for Platform as a Service, and SaaS stands for Software as a Service. So this could be a bit overwhelming for people who are outside of non-computer folks. So please bear with us. So I had to do this to make this course even more interesting. So I'll just try to be as simple as possible, but don't worry if it is beyond what you can understand for people who are not from computers. So that's, having said that, with that disclaimer, I will just get into this. So infrastructure as a service, you have an application. Now you want to use a cloud service provider, and then you want to deploy your application to cloud. And say you have an IT team and you're confident of doing a bunch of things. Your software team is confident of maintaining the application, developing the application, deploying the application, all these things. If you think your IT team is comfortable and capable of doing it, companies usually go with infrastructure as a service model. What this does is, all you would do is you would be renting or you would be using just the infrastructure resources from the cloud service providers. You would not be using anything beyond that. It is like renting a computer from them, and then which is equipped with all networking features and storage options, and the operating system. So it's pretty much you're buying a computer from a store, except that you're renting. So you rent these computers and then you deploy your application using your software team into the cloud. So this is, you're not going to be using anything beyond the virtual hardware, networking, and software from the cloud service provider. So that model is infrastructure as a service model. So this is the most flexible model. By flexible, I mean that you can do whatever you want, but you're expected to be tech savvy to choose this model. So there are some advantages of this model. So instead of purchasing the hardware outright, users pay for IaaS on demand. You can shut down the computer when you're not using it. You will not be paying for the compute capacity when you're not using it. The charges are billed by the minute or by the hour. The infrastructure that you choose is still elastic. We spoke about elastic, meaning you can still buy as many computers as you want or as less computers as you want based on the demand. Your enterprise doesn't have to maintain their own hardware. They don't have to maintain their own operating system. There is maintenance of operating system, but you don't have to maintain your own hardware. You don't have to upgrade your hardware. All those are still done by the cloud providers. You can switch from one computer to another depending on your load. All those things are still available in IaaS actually. So this is the most flexible and the most simplest and least expensive method of delivery of your application. But there are certain things in this where you would still have to deploy your application. You have to manage your disaster recovery. If something goes wrong, you have to manage your data. You have to manage your backups. All those things are pretty much done by yourself. That's what IaaS model is, but you only pay for what you use. So that's the simplest model. The next one is PaaS. PaaS takes you to the next level where organizations not only don't manage the underlying infrastructure, but they also don't manage much more thing, like they don't worry about managing the backups. They don't worry about upgrading your operating system software. They don't worry about securing your hardware. The software that comes with your hardware is maintained by the cloud service provider. You don't have to maintain any software. All you do is you deploy your software, and the cloud service provider takes care of all those inbuilt software that comes with the computers. You only maintain your software. In the previous model, the difference between the previous model IaaS and this one is that in the previous model, you have to patch your operating system. You have to upgrade your operating system. You have to, you also have to make your own backups. There are a few variations. All those things need not be done in the past. It's just that you worry about your software. That's period passes. They provide the platform for you. You provide the software. That's it. So that's PaaS in short. Next one is software as a service. This is the most easy and the most comprehensive solution available on the cloud. By comprehensive, I mean that a complete solution is provided by the CSP, by the cloud service provider, where they take care of the hardware, they take care of the software that comes with the hardware, they take care of developing the software, and they deploy the software to the hardware, and you would just be an user of the software. So that's SaaS, and it costs more. Each one costs more than the previous one. So here you would create accounts for the software that the cloud service provider creates, and then you would be subscribing to those accounts, and you would be using the software as you need it. So that's software as a service, but I'm going to go in detail by taking an example. So let's say I'm sorry. Let's say let's take through a business case and run through each of these delivery models and see how different they are. So let's say there is a car manufacturing company with 10,000 employees, and that's the main business of this car manufacturing company is not IT. Their main business is manufacturing cars. So they should not be spending much of their time and resources on software or IT resources. But however, they will have a lot of software requirements for building an inventory control system, for building a procurement system, for building receipts, payables, for running payrolls for all these 10,000 employees. So there is, even though the company is a car manufacturing company, they would have requirement for running payroll for all these 10,000 employees. So let's take an example where they require a software to run payroll for all these 10,000 employees. So prior to cloud, what this car manufacturing company would do is they would build up a data center. They would build a whole suite of applications in their data center, which involves all the things that we talked about earlier: inventory control system, procurement system, receipt system, payable system, payroll system. They will have a huge IT team. They would have constant upgrades of hardware on the data center. They would have annual maintenance contracts. That's what would happen prior to cloud. So now that we have cloud, how do you get there? So I'm going to take the example of IaaS. So in IaaS, what they would do is this company would still build their software. They would provision a hardware on the cloud, deploy the software to the cloud, and get rid of the data center. They would not be having a data center. They don't have inventory of hardware. They would not be having physical buildings where they will be paying rent for us. They will not be paying for power. All those things is gone, but still they would be maintaining a software. They will be having their software team, and that software team will be building the software, but they would be using the cloud to deploy their software. They'd be using the cloud infrastructure resources to deploy the cloud software, the software into the cloud. That's IaaS actually. Now PaaS, if you go to PaaS, the same company, they would not even worry about provisioning hardware on the cloud. They would say that they would give that responsibility also to the cloud service provider. They would say that they would ask the cloud service provider to scale up or scale down the computing hardware resources required to meet the demand of the software. So the cloud service provider would be doing this. They would do the elasticity part. The cloud service provider would do the backups, and they would do the OS upgrades. The organization or the car manufacturing company, all they do is they just deploy their software. That's pretty much what it is. They don't have to worry about spikes in demand. If on a certain day there was a demand, the number of computers that would be switched on and the number of computers to which this application would be deployed would be taken care by this cloud service provider. So nothing would be taken care of this organization. The only thing that the organization would focus on is pretty much on their application. So that's the PaaS model. SaaS. So I want to bring the question about SaaS here. So I want to get to know SaaS is nothing but, say, this car manufacturing organization doesn't want even to develop their own software. What they would do is they would go with a third-party company which has a payroll software, something like an ADP or Workday. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of third-party payroll softwares, but that's why I'm just saying some examples. So they would go with a third-party cloud-based software providers who basically developed their payroll application, deployed it to the cloud. So this car manufacturing company, all they would do is they would pay a subscription for each of their employee and create an account for each of their employee on the software that's being developed by the third party, and then they would process the payroll for each of those employees. So this is a SaaS model. So to do this, the payroll application has to sit somewhere on the cloud actually. So once it sits on the cloud, that's developed by some third party software. All this car manufacturing organization has to do is to create accounts for each employee and then do the payroll processing. So this is SaaS model. So you might be wondering, the jobs are taken away, the jobs for data center, the jobs for software development, all these are taken away by the cloud. No, that's not true actually. The reason is because you still have a software development company which develops payroll software. It's just that the car manufacturing company is no longer developing a software. It goes to a pure software company which is still doing the payroll software development. So you would still have jobs. Jobs are not becoming obsolete because of cloud. In fact, you're getting more jobs because of cloud, because there are more and more and more data centers. With the car manufacturing company, there would only be a data center where the car manufacturing company is. Say if the car manufacturing company is located in Chennai, they would have a data center only in Chennai. But with cloud right now, you would have now the same car manufacturing company can open a branch in Europe. They can open a branch in South America. They can open a branch in Russia. They could open anywhere actually. All they need is, that's because the infrastructure from the cloud service provider is available all these places, and all these places require more and more people for jobs actually. So it's if you're looking at it from a perspective that the cloud is taking up your job when the car manufacturing companies stop developing software, it's just that there is a shift of developing software from a car manufacturing company to a typical software company. So that's what the transformation of cloud comes into picture. The cloud has transformed businesses separately and software separate. So you would see a lot of software companies coming into picture, a lot of data center coming into picture. You would have a lot more hardware-based jobs. You would have a lot more software-based jobs. Because businesses expand and expand, which is not going to be the case when you have a localized car manufacturing company, which is just local to particular one company or one country or one city. So that's the power of cloud, which creates more opportunities in this area. Having said that, I want to open up a question, which is question number 3. What are the common software of service applications you can think of? If you can think of few, please put it in the chat channel. I will give it a few more minutes before we can look into it. But I highly encourage you to post your answers with any software, SaaS software that you can think of. If you don't know, that's fine. Just feel free to put in your answers. So that's the 3 models of infrastructure as a service, and 3 models of deploying your application into the cloud. So that's the essence of this particular session. What is cloud? You got that? And why cloud and how to get there. This is, like I said, it's just a 101 session. This is supposed to be the 10,000-foot overview of the cloud computing. There is a lot more on the details of how do you get into each of these IaaS, what IaaS involves, what PaaS involves, what SaaS involves. All these things, if you drive down into details, there are lots and lots of resources out there. I've put in a few. I will add a few more at the end of the slide, and then I will share this slide with the users in here. But having said that, I want to open up the session for people if they have any questions before we get into the next slide to talk a little bit about jobs. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Bhuvaneshwari, if you want to take the questions and then pass it on.
Yes, sir. So first question is how to access cloud services.
That's a great question, actually, and I have resources for that at the end of the slide. It depends on the cloud service provider. So I will go back to that. So I'm going to bring this resource before I go back to the previous slide. I have some learning exercises, and I also have working on the cloud. So to answer your question, how to access cloud service providers. So the access, for example, if you want to access Amazon Cloud, you would go to aws.amazon.com, and then you would create an account, just like how you create an account with Gmail or how you with any of the email providers. You would create an account with Amazon or Google or Microsoft. I'm going to get back to, hold on one second. I will. I want to get back to my initial slide. Are you still seeing my slide, or you lost the? Can you see my slide again? For some reason, if I pass my, yeah, see that's the issue actually. When I pass my slide and then try to reshare it, it's not letting me do it. So I want to, anyway, getting back to your question, each cloud service provider, I think I may have to stop and reshare, but we'll get to that. For the question that was posed, how do you access cloud service provider? I've provided links at the end of this session, which shows for each cloud service provider, whoever you choose to, each cloud service provider have their own advantages and disadvantages. I can provide you some links to those, but that's for the next level. But what I'm trying to say is they have their own website. You go create an account. This is all these service providers have free accounts, whether you choose Amazon or Microsoft or Google or IBM, they all give you free accounts. You can create free accounts. You can spin free computers. You can start deploying application on those free computers. You can start accessing those computers and resources for free. It's completely free. You can have up to one computer up and running for 750 hours per month on each of these service providers. I have put the link at the end of this slide for each of those service providers, if that answers the question.
Thank you, sir. Next question. What are the types of models in cloud computing?
What do you mean by types of model in computing? That's what we saw about the delivery models is IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Or if I'm not understanding the question, but if they can be more specific, what they mean by types of cloud computing or models of computing, I'm still not able to get the question there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is difference between web application and cloud application.
Well, there's no difference between a web application and a cloud application. Web is one type of application that can be deployed in the cloud. There can be any type of application that you deploy in the cloud. For instance, you can use your cloud just for making backup of your pictures. So let's take a very common example. Say you take a picture on your phone and you want to make a backup of that picture. What do? So you push it to the cloud. So that's an example of SaaS, where you could have an Android phone or an iOS phone or any type of phone. You have some content on your phone or your desktop. You try to push it onto the cloud. That's the purpose that you're using for the cloud is making a backup of your data. So that's one of the purposes. That's one of the application. The other application could be your web applications. So all these are types of application in the cloud. So there is nothing called cloud application versus web application. Web application is just one type of cloud application. Cloud can be used for any type of business that you require, if that answers again your question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Another question. Is Facebook, WhatsApp, and other social medias comes under SaaS?
Yes, they do come under SaaS because that's a great question. That's a correct answer as well. The thing is, you want to create a Facebook account. All you do is you log into Facebook, create an account, and then you start using Facebook. If you look at Facebook as an application, yes, it's a SaaS because you don't develop Facebook, you just start using Facebook. That's a great question, and that's an answer. Yes, all those three, all the social media applications is a SaaS application. You would not call it SaaS, but it is a SaaS.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, why don't other big companies like Facebook have their own cloud service like Amazon and Google does?
Again, they are coming up. Oracle is coming up with their, not coming up. Oracle's cloud is much more mature, but that's up to the company to start their own cloud or not, because they probably don't want to get into this business of cloud. When you have a business of cloud, it's cloud computing is a software actually. Probably Facebook has a different business strategy where they're focusing more on social media and they don't want to venture into that cloud. That would be a question for Facebook. Having said that, there are a lot more companies that are coming into cloud. Oracle is one of them. SAP is one of them. There are more and more companies still coming. Why Facebook is not there yet? That's a question for Facebook. Okay.
Thank you, sir. In PaaS model, if our server crashes due to traffic overload, will the CSP be responsible for that? Will they give any compensation to the application team?
Absolutely, it's a great question. Before we even answer that question, in a PaaS model, there is something called HA, which is highly available. So it's again all the options are piecemealed. By piecemeal, what I mean by that is when you choose the PaaS model, you have an option of having highly available application. By highly available application, what you mean is you would say that my application, you as an organization choose that my application runs on two servers, 3 servers, 5 servers, 10 servers, n servers. So what happens is if you choose that your application is going to be running on one server, then what happens is you take the responsibility of you take the responsibility of the application running on one server. However, what happens is that's where SLA comes into picture. If you remember, I talked about SLA. The cloud service providers gives you an SLA of 99.999% available throughout a year. So the 0.001% would be like, say, 1 hour. If in past model, if the server is down for more than 1 hour in the whole 1 year, they would compensate you for the downtime, for the business loss based on the service level agreement. But if it's not down, you don't have to worry about the service provider takes care of provisioning based on what you choose. To answer your question in a short term, if it goes down, if the underlying hardware is down for more than what is in the service level agreement, you would be compensated by the cloud service provider for your revenue loss and for the application loss. Your application would not be lost because the backups are taken by the cloud service provider, but the time loss would be compensated if it goes beyond the service level agreement.
Okay, thank you, sir. Shall we proceed our session, sir? So we have a lot of questions in the chat box.
No, go ahead. Actually, I think we are pretty much, I just want to bring the job part and then the resources. That's pretty much it. But I would like to hear more questions if there are any.
Oh.
And then just proceed. I have another 15, 20 minutes. And we don't have much left other than to speak about jobs.
Oh, thank you, sir. Next question is, how long can we access our data that is stored in our CSP's data center? After how much time will they remove our data from their data center?
It's completely yours, meaning your data will be there as long as you pay. So if it's a subscription, you remember, right? We talked about you pay as you go. So say you have a picture, you upload your picture into one of these CSP, and then they charge you by the month. So say for you buy 1 meg of data, 1 meg of storage space from these cloud service providers. What happens is you pay a monthly subscription for that 1 gig or 1 meg, whatever it is. For the 1 gig of data, as long as you keep paying, your data is going to be there and they would not touch your data. The moment you stop paying, the data is gone. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Difference between cloud and traditional data centers, sir. Another question.
Yeah, I think that's what we discussed in detail, but the difference is, again, it's CapEx versus OpEx, meaning there is a lot of capital expenditure on a data center. You have to rent a space, you have to maintain the hardware, you have to purchase the hardware, you have to maintain the hardware, you have to upgrade this hardware, not just the hardware, the software that goes along with the hardware. But on cloud, you don't own anything. All that is done by the cloud service provider, even in an IaaS model. They maintain the hardware, they maintain the software that comes along with the hardware. You just pay for what you use. That's the difference. I think we spoke enough, but I think probably the person who asked the question must have joined late or whatever it is.
Thank you, sir. What is the security level of our data? Will our data be safe?
Absolutely. That's where shared model comes into. So from a hardware perspective, the cloud service providers takes care of the security of the hardware. By hardware, I mean they give you computers, they secure the computers. So nobody is going to breach into the computers, or nobody is going to steal the computers, or nobody is going to shut down the computers. However, once you deploy application onto those computers and that application starts generating data, the security and the validity of the data is completely your responsibility. That's where the shared service model comes into picture. If that, again, that's the answer. You can keep it as
Thank you, sir.
you can keep it as secure as you want it. If you want, you can leave the security of the data to the cloud service provider as well. Again, that would cost you as well. So that's again your choice. If you want to keep the data secure, you can take it upon to you, or you could leave it to the cloud service provider and pay for it.
Okay, sir. Last question. If we save some data in cloud storage, will they give any assurance for the confidentiality of my data?
Yes, there is. That's a great question. It depends on the storage type. There are different types of storage that each cloud service provider has. And then there is something called security and compliance. So compliance comes into, there are a bunch of compliances. HIPAA compliance is one of them. There are a bunch of industry standard compliances, and all that is discussed in the service level agreement. What level of security and compliance your data will come into is described in the service level agreement. But to answer your question in a short way, yes, it is going to be secure and confidential depending on the type of storage that you choose.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anything else?
So no, sir.
So for some reason, I'm not able to share my screen again, because I want to talk a little bit about the jobs that are in this area. I may have to quickly exit and then come back. So I'm just going to exit out of GoToMeeting and then come back in, if that's fine.
Okay, sir.
Okay. You can pause your recording if you want. Okay. If you want to make me the presenter, I will share my screen.
Yes, sir. You are the presenter.
I'm seeing that.
Yes, sir, it's coming.
Yeah, so I know I'm seeing what the issue is. Once I stop the share, and then once I stop it, and then go back to the non-presenter mode, and then once I come out of the slide mode from PowerPoint and then come back to the slide mode, it's not letting me do that. The software is not letting me do that. I have to quit and then come back. So that's where.
Oh.
So which screen are you seeing? You're seeing the previous screen, not the slide, right? Not the slideshow. You're not seeing the slideshow.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that's
Yes, sir.
okay. So it's for some reason it's not letting me present the slide. Okay, so anyway, so I just want to discuss a few jobs here. Nothing much more than what's said in here. There are a bunch of jobs which are specific to cloud, which is a cloud engineer, where you would be working on with these cloud service providers or even in the organizations that are using the cloud, the cloud engineer's job would be essentially more on the IaaS side, where they would be creating their application and deploying the application onto the cloud. So this is a pure cloud engineer job where they would spin up resources, where they would spin up infrastructure components on the cloud for the organization. And that's one of the prime job of cloud engineer. So then there is cloud sales. Then there is data engineer. One of the questions was, how do you secure data? How do you manipulate data? So data engineer's job is one of the jobs of the data engineer is to secure the data in the cloud. So that's another job people can look into. Systems engineer, that's a common thing. It comes both, this is a job that cloud service providers hire, where they would require system engineers, or they would require system developers to create more services within the cloud. So this is more on the cloud service provider. Cloud architects. Cloud architects are the ones who provide, who design an architecture for the application to be in the cloud. So that's cloud architect. DevOps. DevOps is another very hot area, which is development and operations are merged together. Earlier, there used to be a development team, and then there used to be operations team. Operations team is like the infrastructure team. Now with cloud, both of those have been merged into DevOps, and then the development team and the operation team work together, and it's usually one person who does all the automation, all the scripting to deploy the application in an automated fashion into the cloud. So that's DevOps engineer. A DevOps architect is one who would architect a solution that DevOps engineers would work on actually. Solution architect. Solution architects is a role that works both from an application perspective and a cloud perspective. So there are some nuances that are required for cloud. There are some nuances that are required for cloud. So a solution architect is expected to know a lot about the application and a lot about a cloud. So that's what a solution architect, who would provide a holistic picture about getting the application and keeping the application healthy on the cloud. The last one is enterprise solution architect. Is a solution architect who works at the enterprise level, looks at the designs that multiple solution architects bring in, and then it's more like a committee to review the best practices that the cloud service providers recommend, and the enterprise cloud service architect basically works with a team to provide the best cost-effective, secure solution for any application to run on the cloud. So that's the solution. So these are all some of the jobs that are available in the cloud arena. And each of these have requirements. I can add though, I don't remember adding that in the resources section. I can tweak a little more in the resources section. My resource section is not complete. I can add few more resources, which would be very helpful for the rest of the team, and then I can share my slide. So that's pretty much about jobs actually. And in this, I have my contact details, my email, and my LinkedIn profile. If you have more questions or if you want another session, please feel free to get in touch with me before I take some questions about jobs and then conclude the session, if there are any. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So on last question is posted in a chat box. That is, how can we secure data during transport in cloud?
That's another technical question. There are two types of data security. One is they call it data in transit and data at rest. Data in transit is encrypted using TSL or bunch of encryption methodologies. So the encryption methodology is chosen by the application owner. So once you encrypt the data that's in transit, the data becomes secure. So that's the best way to do data encryption or data security in transit. Once the data reaches onto the cloud, with a click of a button, you can select data encryption and data security at rest. At rest is nothing but when the data is stored on the cloud. So that is also, there are a bunch of encryption methodologies, including TLS, different versions of TLS. So both are available, both in transit and in at rest. But in transit, it becomes the responsibility of the application owner who sends the data.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Another question is, what is the usage of eucalyptus in cloud computing?
Well, that's a great question. It depends. It depends on. There are a bunch of tools and technologies that are coming in, and eucalyptus is one of them. I have to further research into it to give the exact details of what it exactly does from a user standpoint. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Other questions?
And dear participant, I think that's all, sir.
Oh.
All the questions are repeated one.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed the session and hope it was useful. Like I said, I tried to keep it at Cloud 101. It's a 10,000 foot overview. It's like more for cloud for dummies. If you have more questions, or please feel free to give feedback. We can take it from there. If you're open for another session, we can have one. Thanks again for this opportunity. It was useful.
Thank you, sir. So now it's a time for vote of thanks. So I request Dr. Pritidana Cyril, Head of the Department IT in Loyola Institute of Technology, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So good morning all. I feel allied to propose this vote of thanks on behalf of Loyola Institute of Technology. Hope you all enjoyed the session, and I am very glad to see the response of faculties and students from various institutions. First, I thank all the participants for participating in the webinar during this current situation. And I would like to thank our management for the constant support, and I extend my heartful gratitude to our principal, Dr. Sujata, for her motivation. And I thank Mr. Karthik Krishnan, Enterprise Solution Architect, Samsung USA, for sharing his knowledge to make the session more lively and successful. And I like to thank my colleagues to make this program success. Once again, I thank all the participants for making this event grand success. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
So the feedback link will be available in the chat box. So e-certificate will be sent to all the participants after filling up the feedback form. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Karthik, sir, thank you so much.
It was my